Okay, so today we are going to begin with part C of our economics, business and commercial laws. In that we have part C, which is of 35 marks. Okay, your module 2. In module 2, subject is our EBCL. In EBCL we have part C, all are all aware. We have part A, part B and part C. Part C is of 35 marks. Starting with the interesting topic today, okay? Money laundering. Money laundering is a part of the Act of Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay, so we are going to do two laws in this kind of anti-corruption laws. Prevention of Money Laundering Act is also known as a anti-corruption law. Okay. So in anti-corruption laws, we will be doing Prevention of Money Laundering Act along with Benami transactions. Okay. So these are the two acts which belong to anti-corruption laws. We are going to complete these two. Okay. Now starting with today, as we have to study our PMLA Act 2002. Okay. What do you all understand by money laundering? Okay, what is the concept? What do we mean by money laundering is very important here to understand. Okay, because once understood with this, okay, once we understand this money laundering, the entire chapter is clear. Okay, that is why once we know money laundering, we know why this act is made. Why do we have these kind of laws in place and known as anti-corruption laws? Okay, so money laundering, first thing, what is money laundering? To understand that is to give your black money a clean chit and transferring it and making it white money. Okay, in the simple language, money laundering is nothing but turning all your black money, converting all your illicit funds into a legitimate funds, white money. Okay, so obviously there are various ways of collecting this illegal money. Conversion of illegal money into legal money is money laundering. So this means we are having certain sources from which illegal money is collected. Correct? Now what can be that one source, okay, from where I can collect illegal money? Say I have terrorist activities. Okay. Then any other kind of illegal way of collecting funds, women trafficking, smuggling. Okay, so there can be various ways in which illegal money, illegal funds are collected by a person. Obviously black money अपने पास तो नहीं रख सकते, so they have to convert this into a white money. So when that procedure has to take place, how it is converted, they will have to place it in such a manner, okay, this entire black money has to be placed in such a manner that this entire illegal funds will seem to be legal to the law. Okay, now what are the ways? How do people do this? First, the vanilla way of layering and integrating your money is whatever black money you have collected, okay, you invest in luxury properties, real estate business, houses, villas, etc. So automatically your entire money is now as a fund, you have invested your entire money and you have funded a particular real estate or a house and real estate business, making a property here and there. Okay, this is one of the most easiest way of converting this illegal money. Second, round tripping. Okay, round tripping is something wherein I go abroad. Okay, in those countries, first, which are those tax haven countries, also who do not bother regarding, they like kind of promote money laundering. They do not have this disclosure of information to other countries. So people start putting their money in Swiss account, Switzerland. Okay, then you have Cayman Island. Okay, so these are the places. Okay, I go there, I take my entire money and I make a shell company and I'll say that मेरा उधर business है, वहाँ पे से business में से मेरा पैसा आ रहा है, पूरा का पूरा invest कर दिया, and then I keep on showing that this is the amount of profit I'm getting. So the illegal money turns into legal money. Then black salary. What is black salary? Black salary is nothing but paying salaries in cash, paying all the expenses which you are kindly doing, like, you know, whatever is your expenses, everything you are giving in cash. Okay, no bank transactions, nothing at all. Also investing your money in lottery businesses. Say suppose there is this Mr. A who runs a lottery business. So I give my entire black money to him. Okay, and then he will give me a lottery ticket saying that, okay, I had given him 1 crore rupees. He gave me a lottery ticket of 80 lakhs. I tell him, you keep 20 lakhs. This is yours. 80 lakhs mera white ho gaya directly, immediately. Okay, so these are the certain ways, certain methods, and you know, like, we should obviously know this act because these are actual practical ways in which people are following since years and using their, you know, these techniques to convert these kind of money, okay, and have a tax clear chips, okay, like nothing at all goes wrong with these kind of people. Then we have Benami transactions that we will see in the next chapter. Benami transaction is a chapter itself. Benami means like I am buying a real estate or I am opening a company but not in my name, in someone else's name. Okay, so we will see this entire act also. So they have started prohibiting this Benami transactions also. They want to combat this entire money laundering. Okay, what is our purpose? In India today and everywhere, the purpose is to combat money laundering. So the acts are also prohibitory in nature. Okay. Then some people sell all those things which are not useful on OLX and Flipkart. Okay, for example, okay, just taking an example, you can take example of M.F. Hussain also. Say he makes a painting. Okay, he is a painter. Painting banaya, then he got in contract with Mr. Y, saying that my painting is of 1.2 crores. Okay, I'm transferring this full money to you and you buy this painting from me. You pay me 1 crore back. And 20 lakhs you can keep. Okay, so this is also one kind of a business which people do with their illegal money. And सबसे safe NGO funding. Keep on funding those NGO खोल दो. Okay, Being Human, etc, etc. You all know the other names of NGOs. So NGO खोल दो. Nobody will come to know from where what money is coming. Okay, so if you see this diagram which I have made here, it will show you these you know, some of the methods of layering and integrating your money. So once you have money with the various sources, illegal money is collected, you start placing it. Okay, so you integrate that money. Placement is mean you're trying to integrate that money into the financial system. Okay, even financial market, stock exchanges are used. You know, people start investing over there. Also banks. Okay, they make various accounts, transactions. Okay, lines of transactions they do over the bank. So they put this money, integrate into the financial system. Say for example, they make false payment. Payment made by Y of false invoice. Actual no transaction has taken place to company X. Then transfer to the bank account of company X is some shell company. Okay, there is no company such existing. Then you're showing this as a loan. Okay, then offshore banking, you're keeping your money offshore. Okay, and then when all this money, okay, when it turns into legal, you kind of integrate it back in the market, saying you purchased an asset, luxury assets, you do financial investments, commercial, industrial investments. Okay, so this is how basically money laundering functions. Okay, these are the techniques people use since years, and they try to place their entire black money in the financial market, bank market, and integrate it in such a manner that they convert this entire illegal money into legal money. Okay, so now what are we going to study in this chapter? Basically, first, okay, what is money laundering? So now with this entire explanation, we have understood that obviously it is a processing of criminal proceeds. Okay, criminal proceeds. Illegal funds is a criminal proceeds. Okay, to disguise its illegal origin. So it can arise from terrorism, illegal arms sales, financial crimes, smuggling activities, drug trafficking, okay, prostitution rings, etc. Okay, this activity, these all criminal activity, they generate substantial profits. Okay, the individual or group involved in such activities, what do? They route the funds to safe havens by disguising the sources, changing its form, moving the funds from one place to another where they are less likely to attract any kind of attention. Okay, so they use various methods which is the most suitable for them, and then they convert this entire illegal money into legal form. Now, how is money laundered is the important question. So a diagram basically explained that what will I do first. The money laundering takes part in 3 stages, most important. Okay, so first I will do a placement. I will introduce my funds in the financial system. Okay, in the initial or the placement stage of money laundering, what does a launderer do? He introduces his illegal profits into the system, breaks up the amounts into smaller sums so that it is less likely to get attracted. Okay, and then they are deposited into a bank account. Second, they start layering. Okay, layering is carrying out complex financial transactions from one end to another, having various accounts. Okay, so like somewhere, like if you see even today, you see these rent agreements. Okay, rental. I'll give you a live example, okay, which I have gone through. This is a, where I stay, it is a rented house. Now, this rented house is actually, I am paying rent to Mr. X. Per month rent, you all know what is a rented house, huh? Per month. Correct? Now, what has this house is not even belonging to Mr. X. And sublet to hum kar hi nahi sakte. So, what has he done is, he has taken this property from Mr. Y. Samajho, he's taken this property from Mr. Y on heavy deposit. So what I have come to know that he has taken this at 50 lakhs rupees. Yani pura ka pura 50 lakhs usne Mr. Y ko de diya. This is not a sale. Okay, just on heavy deposit he has taken. Once the term will end, 20 years term pe liya hai usne, 20 years. Once this 20 years term will end, Mr. Y will have to pay him back this 50 lakhs. Okay, तो यानी उसको 50 lakhs तो वापस मिलना ही है after 20 years. And now what will this Mr. X do with this property? He is not staying. So he is given to me on rent. Okay, he is rented to me, taking whatever, X amount, say 20,000 per month. ठीक है ना? So now he is taking this entire amount in black. He will not take a check because it will be questioned, okay, bhai, from where are you getting this full year, 2 years का पूरा 2,40,000 अगर year का मैं पकड़ूं, 12 months का 2,40,000, he will be questioned. So from where are you getting this? Right? So he is taking this entire money in black, full cash. Okay, he doesn't accept any checks, nothing. Okay, no bank transfer, nothing at all. He takes this and then he collects this kind of money and again he buys another kind of this house on heavy deposit. So getting my point, it is like a complex transactions, financial transaction which he keeps on doing. Or else he'll take this entire money and keep putting some amounts, 20,000 here, then 20,000 to his father, 20,000 mother, then some amount he'll show it as a loan. So this is how they will layer that entire black money. Okay, and then the last is the integration. Then whatever the wealth they have generated with this kind of a transaction, either they will buy a real estate property or they will open some pizza parlor, okay, some kind of a shop, or offshore, they will show that offshore mein mera ye business chal raha hai, wahan se paisa aa raha hai. So then they will again reinvest these funds into real estate, luxury assets or business ventures, big joint ventures. Like you're saying, I'm doing industrial investments, I'm the investor. Okay, so this is how the money laundering takes place. So this is the most important question from this chapter up till now. Okay, so of course when I talk about money laundering and since it is a corrupted activity, it has an impact on our development. Okay, social, economic, political, everything is affected due to money laundering, and if it remains unchecked, then it will be very serious, and many people have taken an advantage of such money laundering activities, and now they are not even available. Okay, people just leave the country and they go. Okay, you are not even able to kind of we are not able to even know the source, okay, where their money is kept, or how have they, unless and until some serious actions are taken against them, or they are caught with some particular given activity. Okay, so overall in the entire world, globally, many initiatives have been taken, okay, for preventing this money laundering. So what are the global activities? Once we'll do this global activities, after that we will see the India initiative. What is India doing for combating this money laundering? So first one in that we have the Vienna Convention. Okay, it is the first major activity, and Vienna was for against any illicit traffic in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances in 1988. And it, therefore, it like the big name is narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances, and it is now known as like Vienna Convention. Whose short name is Vienna Convention. It was the United Nations Convention, the first convention ever, okay, in order to stop and combat money laundering activities, especially only in narcotic drugs. Okay, it was the groundwork for the efforts to combat money laundering by obliging all the member states, okay, who are a part of this convention, to criminalize those who are laundering money from drug trafficking. Okay, so there were many states who are a member of this Vienna Convention. It made obligatory on each and every state that whoever has any kind of illegal money coming from drug trafficking, okay, you will be punishing them under this Narcotic Drugs and Substances Act. Second one was Council of Europe Convention. Okay, Council of Europe Convention said that on laundering, they said search, seizure and confiscation of proceeds of the crime. So in case if there is any kind of money or property etc. which is a result of money laundering, we will search that, we will also seize that, and we will also confiscate that particular property, and we will establish a common policy on the same. Okay, so all the member states had obliged to this as well. Okay, it laid down the principles for international cooperation among the member states. It came into force in September 1993. So what was the purpose? It was to facilitate international cooperation, each country cooperating with each other, so that if money is laundered from one country and then it is integrated in another country, so it was to combat that as well. Okay, as regards to investigate, assistance, search, seize, confiscate the proceeds of all types of criminal activity. Okay, from the activities or crimes such as drugs, arms dealing, terrorist offences, etc. Okay, then we had another European Union Money Laundering Directive. It removed a directive. Directive is like we have guidance, rules, regulations, something like that. Okay, they issued a directive on prevention of use of financial system. They wanted to prevent the financial system from these money laundering activities, because when these kind of money is integrated in the financial system, it affects the entire financial system in a very hazardous manner. Okay, so they wanted to protect this financial system. They did not want only any money laundering activities, money getting integrated in the financial system at all. Okay, the directive requires the member states to outlaw, remove and criminalize money laundering. They wanted to remove it completely. Okay, then they had put under, all the member states were put under the obligation to require these financial institutions, the financial institutions are banks, okay, to establish and maintain such internal systems that it will automatically prevent money laundering. Okay, so like you have to identify your customers. Now we have a KYC. You report suspicious transactions. All of a sudden there is so much of money in the account. Why so? Okay, issue of your PAN card, when you're trying to remove more money or put in more money in your account. So all these are the part All this has come, in due to all these conventions and, all these Money Laundering Act guidelines and principles and directives which they have stated. Okay. Then you have Basel Committee Statement of Principles. Okay, these were the also set of principles which they had to be complied by the member states. Okay, but especially the international banks. They said you have to identify the customers, avoid any suspicious transactions, and also cooperate with law enforcement agencies. It would ensure that the banks are not used. Okay, generally people use to banks to hide their funds. Okay, so they wanted that the banks should not be used as a medium to launder the funds. Then we have a resolution of International Organization of Securities Commission. This is an IOSCO. Okay, they had adopted a resolution to take the necessary steps and combat money laundering in securities and future markets. Okay, securities market, apna capital market. Okay, so that capital market is generally getting exploited due to money laundering activities. People start investing money in capital markets. Okay, so they wanted to combat that as well. Then we have question number 4 from this chapter. We can say the Financial Action Task Force. Okay, so this Financial Action Task Force was specially established for money laundering, to combat money laundering activities, and it was established in the G7 summit, which was held in Paris in 1989. Now, what is this Financial Action Task Force? First, the most important, it is an intergovernmental body. Okay, the purpose of which is set up with a specific purpose, and the purpose is only that, is development and promotion of those kind of policies. Okay, both at national level, at international level, in order to combat laundering and terrorist financing. So this is a body, okay, it is an intergovernmental body who makes all the policies. So it is a policy making body, okay, and they have made a lot of efforts, okay, and they are still making efforts, okay, to adopt and implement measures designed to counter the use of financial system by criminals. Because once this stops, once the exploitation of financial system stops, okay, for these illegal activities, okay, wherein the money gotten from illegal activities are introduced in this financial system, if this will stop, money laundering will stop. Okay, so basically the main task of Financial Action Task Force is to monitor the members' progress, whether they are applying these policies properly, review the policies and techniques and countermeasures which they have made, and promoting the adoption and implementation of appropriate measures by non-member countries also. Okay, now we are coming to the topic wherein question number 5, you can say prevention of money laundering. What has India done? Okay, the Indian initiatives for money laundering. So we had a bill which was passed for prevention of money laundering in 1999. Okay, and it received its assent by the President, and thus we have the Act, Money Laundering Act 2002. Okay, the object of money laundering. This is the most important thing. Okay, you can write the object of money laundering as an introduction to any question which they ask you from this chapter. Okay, first is to prevent money laundering. Obviously, once, okay, prevent to karna hi hai. Nahi hua to you can also do confiscation of those properties which were either derived or they were involved or they were formed by money which was laundered, and any matters connected therewith incidental thereto. Okay, so these are the objects of money laundering. Now section 3 of this act. Section 3 states that whoever, okay, if he is acquiring, he owns, possesses or transfers any proceeds of crime, or knowingly enters into any transaction which is related to the proceeds of crime directly or indirectly, or he is concealing or aids the concealment of the proceeds, he will be treated guilty of the offense of money laundering, which will be punishable. Okay, so basically section 3 has given everything. They are saying that even if you acquire, own, possess or transfer, okay, the proceeds of crime, or you knowingly enter into any transaction which is related to the proceeds of crime, or you conceal or you aid in concealment in the proceeds of crime, you will be treated as guilty of money laundering. Okay, फिर भले शायद तुम्हें कोई उस money laundering से you have benefited or not benefited, but if you have aided in concealment, you have done something which is related to that crime, you will be treated offense under this act. Okay, criminal under this act. Then section 4, that provides that any person who commits the offense of money laundering shall be punishable with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 3 years. Okay, so it shall not be less than 3 years. So minimum 3 years, and which may extend to 7 years. And you are also liable with a fine of rupees 5 lakhs. Okay. However, where the proceeds are related to narcotic, drugs and psychotropic substance act, then the punishment is rigorous punishment of up to not 7, but then it will become 10 years. Okay. Then next we have attachment of property involved in money laundering. तो जैसे ही पता चल गया कि ये property money laundering की वजह से आया है, immediately they will, if once they have searched it, they will seize it and they will confiscate it. Okay. So here they say where any director or officer, okay, has any reasons to believe that the person who is having the possession of that property, he has got this property due to money laundering activities, then such officer by order in writing, he will make an order in writing and provisionally attach such property for a period of maximum 180 days. Okay, so he is allowed to attach a given property for 180 days max. So an officer can suo motu, okay, wherein he feels, okay, by himself that yes, this kind of a property is possessed due to money laundering activities. He will give an order in writing and he will attach your property. That attachment order is valid for 180 days. The director or any other officer who provisionally attaches such property shall within 30 days from such attachment file a complaint and place such attachment before the adjudicating authority. यानी attach करके रख नहीं देना है. Within 30 days you have to make a complaint and put that complaint before the adjudicating authority. So here these are the roles of the director and the officer who have the right to attach the properties gained from money laundering. Now what happens in adjudication? Section 8 provides that once the receipt of complaint, once you receive a complaint from the director or the officer, then this adjudicating authority will serve a notice of not less than 30 days. यानी at least 30 days का time देना चाहिए to that person, okay, to come and present himself, okay, and also indicate the sources of his income, give the entire breakup or the data about that particular property or the income from where he received and he brought that property. Okay, the evidence on which he relies and other relevant information in particular, and show the cause. Okay, so a notice is issued to this person, show cause notice, that within 30 days, okay, you show us the cause that why such property should not be declared as a money laundering property and should not be confiscated by the central government. You show us the cause. Show cause notices means what? That when such notices is sent, okay, to the the person, okay, who is, we say that, okay, he must have committed this crime. So if I am sending this notice to Mr. X, I am asking him that you show me the cause, that why as an officer or as an adjudicating authority, okay, why should I not treat this particular property as a property which has come from money laundering, and why should this not be confiscated by the central government? So you have to prove it to me. Okay, give me the list of the details of the income which you have received and by which you have purchased this property. So section 8. Then section 9, vesting of the property in the central government. Section 9 says that where an order of confiscation is made, then that property will belong to the central government and all the rights and titles, etc. It will be free from any encumbrances, any liability. Okay, so if the property is attached Attached means what? It is as of now seized. Okay. Once you have been proved guilty, that property will be confiscated. Confiscation means what? That property will belong to central government now. It will vest with central government. Okay. Then we have the most important topic again here. Obligations on banking companies, financial institutions and our intermediaries. Intermediaries, you will understand it better when we will be doing a SEBI Act, okay, securities and capital laws, securities laws and capital markets subject. When we will start, at that time you will understand intermediaries are better, in a better way. Why? Because intermediaries are those who are a face, okay, between the investor and the company, or between the investor and investor, like your brokers, your stock brokers, your merchant bankers, underwriters. Okay, those are the intermediaries in the capital market. Okay, so even capital market is exploited due to these money laundering transactions, and intermediaries are nothing but they perform a function like a bank only. So these obligations, they are put on banking companies, on financial institutions and also on intermediaries. Okay. So the most important part of this chapter, obligations. Now what are the obligations that are placed on these companies, on banks and financial institutions? Section 12, they say that every banking company or a financial institution and an intermediary, they have to maintain the record of all the transactions. Okay, so you have to mention the nature, the value, the date, etc. Okay, everything. Maintain a complete record of each transaction. Whether the transaction is a single or it has a series of transactions legally connected with each other, and when such series of transactions take place within a month. Okay, so single transactions ka to obviously there will be record, every bank maintains it. Okay, when there is a series of transactions which you feel that is legally connected with each other within a month, that has to also be maintained separately. Okay, these informations you are supposed to submit to the director, and within such time whenever the director has asked for. Okay, director under this act, the officer under this act. Okay, then banks and financial institutions are required to verify and maintain those records of the identity of all its clients in the manner which is given and prescribed under this act. Okay, the records are mentioned, okay, are to be maintained for a period of now 10 years. Now since everything is online over the software, it can be it can be maintained for lifelong. Okay, from the date of cessation of the transaction between the client and the banking company or the financial institution or intermediary. So this was section 12, which said that each company, banking company, financial institution, intermediate, to keep a record of each transaction, whether it is single, whether it is a series of transactions, and provide it to the director as and when required, and maintain such transactions details for a period of 10 years from the cessation of transaction between the client and the bank. Okay. Section 13, the director, okay, may either on its own motion, suo moto, or on an application made by any other authority or officer under this act, he may call for the records of all the transactions of a given bank, okay, of a given person, and he may start an inquiry as he thinks fit. Okay, in the course of the inquiry, if the director finds that the banking company or this institution or intermediary or any of its officer has failed to maintain or retain the records, then he may order a levy fine on such companies, okay, or which shall not be less than 10,000 rupees and which may extend to 1 lakh rupees for each failure. So section 12, section 13 done. And now section 15 says it empowers the central government, okay, it is a central legislation, so it empowers the central government to prescribe, okay, in consultation with RBI of course, the procedure and the manner in which the information will be furnished for purpose of the act. Okay, so whenever there is a information which is needed by the director or any other officer, what will be the manner in which the banks will provide the information, that they have to consult the RBI and place one procedure. Okay, Then we know this Know Your Customer initiative, KYC. Okay, so KYC introduction. What is KYC? Basically, the objective of Know Your Customer norms, anti-money laundering measures, combating or financing of terrorism guidelines is to prevent banks from being used, okay, by these criminal elements for money laundering. Okay, so KYC is to understand the customer, their financial dealings better, okay, and therefore they can manage the risk. KYC policy, customer acceptance for their 4 keys, then customer identification, then monitoring their transaction, and the risk management. Information, how you will preserve the information? You will have to preserve the nature, the amount, the date, and the parties. And maintenance and preservations of the record. Okay, here the banks are required to maintain the records containing information of all the transactions, everything, and they have to take steps, okay, for proper maintenance and preservation in the manner which is being required and the way it has been told by the competent authorities. Okay, also they should see that they have all the records regarding the identification of the customer. For example, passport, identity cards, driving license, PAN card, etc. Okay. They have to also pay special attention to any complex or unusual transactions or unusual patterns of the transaction of that particular client. Alright. So this is basically the obligations which are being put on the banks, the financial institutions and intermediaries, and it is one of the important questions under this chapter, okay, which might be asked. Okay, so with this, I have completed your Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So just as a quick revision, what we did was, we first did question number 1, what is money laundering? Correct? So you will just get a, a kind of a detailed outlay of what you have to do. Okay, what is the procedure, okay, of money laundering? So we did 3 stages, right, of money laundering. Right. First is the placement. You place that money, layering, and then you integrate it back in the market. Okay. Obviously, these kind of money laundering activities, they have an effect on the entire development of the whole nation, as well as the entire global development is also affected. So we had certain global initiatives. We did 5 global initiatives. Okay. Then we have a Financial Action Task Force, which is an intergovernmental policy making bodies, based on whose policies we also have made a Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay, Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002, in which we also did the objects of the act, along with section 3, section 3, section 4, correct, section 5, which are the most important sections, then adjudication, section 8, okay. Then we also have done the obligations on banks, okay. In that, which we have covered section 12, 13 and 15, and KYC norms. Okay, so with this basic, only 5, like today itself you can finish this chapter, read it, study it, and it is done, it is over. Okay, so with this I complete my Prevention of Money Laundering. I will continue with Benami Transactions Act. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we will start with our another act, which is Benami Transaction Act, which is a part of our anti-corruption laws. Okay, so as I had told you that in anti-corruption laws we are going to do 2 acts. One is Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which we just finished, and one is a Benami Transactions Prohibition Act. Okay, तो पहले we need to understand कि what is बेनामी, what is which kind of transactions are known as a बेनामी transactions. Okay, अभी यहाँ पे in the name only it is written बेनामी. Okay, there is some problem in the name. Okay, बेनामी transaction you can say. So here we need to understand that there is a real owner. So say he is Mr. X. He wants to own a particular property. Okay, he wants to buy a property, but he really doesn't, want to disclose it that this is going to be in his name. So what does he do? He gives his black money, money laundering, converting your black money into white money. So it is one Benami transaction is also a part of money laundering acts. So he gives his black money to the person, so say Mr. Y. Okay, now this particular person, Benamidar, he uses this black money and he buys a particular property. But the property though is in the name of Mr. Y, it is registered in name of Mr. Y, but the benefits of the property are actually for the real owner. So he is the beneficial owner. So the real owner, basically to convert his black money into white money, he provides his money to a particular person, a Benamidar. He goes ahead and he buys the property as a registered owner. However, all the benefits of that property flows back to the real owner only. So this is what is a Benami transaction. Now once we understand a Benami transaction, we will automatically understand the act, okay? Because the act is made to prohibit such transactions. So we will be studying the definition of the Benamidar, what is a Benami property, and the most important definition will be a Benami transactions definition under section 2 subsection 9. Okay. So let's move to the act. Okay, Benami Transactions Prohibition Act. If you can see, this act is of the year 1988, but it was amended in 2016. Okay, and it is this, all this entire notes, okay, are with the required amendments only. So let's understand the salient features. What is this act trying to explain us? So what is the prohibition? Okay, what are the prohibitions given under the act? They are making us understand that. So we'll see the salient features. We'll get an outline, like पूरा flow मिल जाएगा कि chapter में actually क्या है. So first I said they will define a Benami transaction. Also understand what is a Benami property. It provides the consequences, like what will be the punishment, okay, if you are entering into a prohibited Benami transactions. Okay, so Benami transactions, there are some, though they are Benami, but they are not prohibited. Okay, they are allowed, though even they are Benami. We will see to it. But the other transactions which they are specifically given, they are prohibited under the act. So what are the consequences? Then it lays the procedure for the determination and the penal consequences in case of a prohibited Benami transactions. It gives the powers of the civil court. Then miscellaneous provisions are also given under the act. Central government is empowered for making the rules for the implementation of the bill. Okay, then the central government, in consultation with the Chief Justice of High Court, is to designate one or more courts of session as special court for this purpose. Okay, provides for any penalty if you're getting into Benami transaction or if you're giving some false informations. Okay, it provides for transfer of any proceedings. If there is a Benami transaction proceedings pending in any given court other than the High Court, then that particular case or suits of proceeding can be transferred to the appellate tribunal. We will see that with the in the coming sections of the act. Let's understand first our important definitions. Okay, the first most important definition is attachment. What do we mean by attachment of a property? Like how we had done prevention of money laundering, here also it remains the same. Attachment means you're attaching a property in such a manner that you prohibit its transfer, conversion of the property, disposition or movement of the property by any order, an order issued under the Act. Second, Benami property. It is the subject matter of the Benami transaction. So it could be any property, movable property, immovable property, okay, which is the subject matter of this particular Act. And the most important which we are going to see is the Benami transaction, okay, under section 2 subsection 9. If we will see the past year's paper, they are more concentrated on the definition of Benami transaction. They ask you as a a direct question, explain Benami transaction under section 2 subsection 9 of the Act. So here let's read this definition. It's a little long definition but very simple to understand. First, point A, okay, as per section 2 subsection 9 of the Benami transaction means a transaction or an arrangement where a property is transferred to or held by a person. Okay, so a property is held by a person, but the consideration for such property, okay, is paid by another person. He is the real owner. He is also known as the beneficial owner. Okay, so the property is transferred to a person, but the payment of consideration is moving from another person. Okay, the property is either held for immediate benefit or may be future benefit, directly, indirectly, anything. Okay, so whether immediately it is benefiting, it has to be benefited in the future, any kind of a property, but exceptions when the property is held by. So these exceptions which I am now going to read, though they are by Benami in its nature, but they are not prohibited under the Act. Okay, so let's read the exceptions. Where a Karta, okay, HUF, Hindu Undivided Family Man, or a member or of an HUF, they hold a property for his benefit or for the benefit of the other members in the family. Okay, and the consideration of this property is provided and paid. Okay, provided or it is paid from the known sources of the HUF. So then it is allowed. It's not a prohibited Benami transaction. Point number B, a person standing in a fiduciary capacity, for example a director or a partner of the firm, for the benefit of another person towards whom he stands in such capacity. So it includes a trustee, executor, partner, as I said, director of a company, depository, or a participant as an agent of the depository under the Depositories Act, etc., as notified by the central government. So obviously, see, if when we have a demat form, okay, demat account is what? It is an account which we hold to hold the shares in electronic form. We can hold shares now, no? In fact, everything is in demat form now. So our shares in the electronic form. So here, I have shares of Reliance. See, okay? It is in the demat form. So Reliance के पास मेरा नाम होना चाहिए, फातिमा कागज वाला. But what if I keep on transferring electronically? So I can keep on transferring, buying, selling in every minute. So every time Reliance can't keep changing my name, no? Can keep transferring. So there the registered owner with Reliance is our depository, NSDL or CDSL, or any other depository participant through this depository. Like we have HDFC demat account, we have Sher Khan, etc. Okay, we have this Zerodha. So anybody, any depository participant who has got the registered certificate from SEBI to hold the shares in demat form. So this is allowed. Fiduciary capacity. NSDL CDSL's name is registered with Reliance. Okay, but the beneficial owner is the person in actually benefiting out from the shares, because I get the dividend, I get the bonus shares, so on and so forth. Okay. Point number C. Any person being an individual, okay, so an individual person like you and me, in the name of his spouse, so I buy a property in my husband's name, or in the name of my child, or I take it for my son, and the consideration is also paid by me from the known sources of the particular individual. So I buy a property either for my husband or for my son or my brother or my sister, my mother, my father, the lineal ascendants and descendants, okay. Or we may also appear as a joint owner on a particular document. So if these three kind of Benami transactions occur, they are not prohibited under the Act, okay. Now coming to the big point B, okay, the prohibited Benami transaction. Next, a transaction or arrangement in respect of a property carried out or made in a fictitious name, like you are making a shell company. Actually that company does not exist only, and then you are transferring the properties in the name of this particular company. So it is fictitious in nature, does not actually exist. A transaction or an arrangement in respect of a property where the owner of the property, who is the owner, he is not aware of or denies the knowledge of such ownership. Okay, so if you are saying that I am not aware only that this particular property exists in my name, so then what is it? It is a Benami transaction. It is prohibited. A transaction or an arrangement in respect of a property where the person providing the consideration is not traceable or is again fictitious. So बेनामीदार तो मिल गया जिसके नाम पे the property is registered, but the person who provided the consideration, okay, now you can't find that person, so obviously we will treat this particular transaction as a Benami transaction. Alright, so any doubt you all have so far? If you all have understood this definition, no, then there is nothing now there is just nothing under the Act. It is so simple. Any doubts, any queries you all have? Okay, so now moving to the next definition, which is Benamidar. He is a person, or it can be a fictitious person like an artificial person. Okay, you make a shell company or an association of person, ऐसे ही partnership firm बना दिया, okay, and in whose name the Benami property is transferred or held and includes a person who lends his name, okay. Fifth, beneficial owner is the person who is the real owner. He actually pays for the particular property, okay. So it is whether his identity is known or whether he is not known, for whose benefit the Benami property is held by the Benamidar. Fair market value is the property, the price property, okay, in the open market at the date of the transaction. We need to know the fair market value. Why? Because the offences and the penalty which is paid, okay, the fine, okay, it depends upon the fair market value of the property, okay. And if it is not if you can't ascertain the fair market value, then it will be prescribed. Then we have a firm. So firm is the same thing like a firm, partnership under Indian Partnership Act section 4. Partners, same meaning which it has under the Indian Partnership Act, and it includes any person. It can be a minor who is admitted for the benefits of the partnership, and it can be a partner of a LLP which is registered under LLP Act. Partnership, same meaning again as assigned under the LLP or Indian Partnership Act. And person, person is an individual or HUF, a company, firm, AOP, body of individuals, or any other artificial person, okay. Now coming to property, I told you it can be any property, movable, immovable, tangible, intangible, corporeal, incorporeal, and includes any kind of rights, interest, legal documents, okay, or instruments in the evidence. So it includes any evidencing the title, rights, interest to the property that we will consider as a property itself. Then 12, transfer. It includes sale, purchase in any form of right, title, possession, or a lien. Okay, so with this we finish section 2. Section 2 of the Act, which talks about the definitions, different types of definitions, which are these words will be used under the Act. Okay, now beginning with section 3. Okay, important. As per section 3, they say that no person shall enter into a Benami transaction, and whosoever enters shall be punishable with an imprisonment for a term which can extend to 3 years, or fine, or with both. Now there is this chapter 7 which deals with this offence and prosecution, under which they have simply given that whoever is guilty of this offence, he will be punishable for a term not less than 1 year, which may extend to 7 years. Okay, and the fine is 25%, may extend to 25% of the fair market value. So this is what you have to remember. Okay. Right. Then coming to prohibition, section 4, prohibition of the right to recover the property held Benami. Okay, now what does this mean? This says, this section provides that no suit or there can be no claim or action to enforce any right in respect of any property which is held Benami. So once it has been adjudicated that this particular property is a Benami property, okay, under the act, okay, the adjudicating authority said that this property is a Benami property. Once it is done, then there cannot be any claim for and against this property or any action. Okay, so let's read this again. Provides that no suit, claim or action to enforce any right in respect of the property held what? Benami, against the person in whose name the property is held, or against any other person, shall lie by or behalf of that person claiming to be the real owner of such property. Because it is already adjudicated, it is a Benami property. So now even if in case you are any other person, you are saying that no, this property is mine, nothing is Benami in this, you are the real owner, registered owner, so whatever it is, there will be no claim or action which you can take for that particular property now. Okay, and section 4 subsection 2 provides that no defense is allowed based on any right in respect of the property held Benami, whether against the person in whose name the property is held or against any other person, shall be allowed in any suit, claim, it is not allowed, okay, or action on behalf of the person claiming to be the real owner of such property. So if you are claiming to be a real owner of such property and that property is already adjudicated Benami, you have no right or claim or action against that particular person or any other person. Okay, done itna? Now coming to section 5. Property held Benami is liable to be confiscated, and it will be confiscated by the central government. Prohibition on retransfer. Okay, now people are very smart. They feel that, oh, we will get caught. So fatafat, what they do is they kind of act very smart and they try to retransfer. So he is the real owner, he is the Benamida. Okay, तो they feel अरे we will get caught, so फटाफट इसके नाम पे वापस retransfer कर लेते हैं या तो किसी और के नाम पे retransfer कर लेते हैं. Okay, so this is also not allowed, this is also prohibited. See, section 6 provides that a person being a Benamidar first, he shall not retransfer the Benami property held by him to the beneficial owner or any other person acting on his behalf. This is totally prohibited. If in case you have already entered such transaction, then that transaction will be treated as null and void. Okay, so section 3 gave us the offences and the penalty. Section 4 said that can not be any suit, claim or right against any property by the real owner against any person. Okay, so you cannot claim once that particular property is a Benami property. That Benami property is liable to be confiscated by central government is given under section 5, and section 6 says that there cannot be retransfer of the Benami property to the beneficial owner again, and such transfers will be treated as null and void. Okay, so up to section 6 we are clear. Now coming to the notice and attachment of the property involved in Benami transaction. अभी ऐसा कोई भी property है तो obviously it will get attached. Okay, and then it will get confiscated by the central government once it is proved. Okay, so now when I have to attach, okay, I'm the officer and I have to attach, so I have to give a particular notice, no, that this particular property we feel is a Benami. You give us the reasons why we should not treat it as a Benami property. Okay, so here it says notice and attachment of the property involved in Benami transaction, that where an initiating officer, here we have officers known as initiating officer, based on whatever reasons, okay, he has reasons to believe that a particular person, that any person is a Benamidar in such respect of the property, then he can record his reasons in writing and give a notice to such person and give him the time frame in which he has to reply to that notice. Okay, and a copy of that same notice he has to also serve it on the beneficial owner. So if you have reasons, you are an initiating officer, you may prepare your reasons, record them, give a notice to the Benamidar as well as a copy to the beneficial owner. Now subsection 3, okay, of this section provides that where the initiating officer is of the opinion that this property which is a Benami, that can be alienated, he has a fear that this particular person may just like alienate, he will go away or he will sell the property or he will transfer it, then he will take an approval from the approving authority and he will attach this property provisionally. तो प्रोविजनली पहले से अटैच करके रख देगा, नोटिस भी भेजेगा और अटैच भी करेगा फॉर मैक्सिमम पीरियड इज 90 days. Provisional attachment. Okay, so before he starts all his search and gathering of evidence etc., at the time of sending the notice only he might feel that, oh no, now if I send the notice he is going to alienate the property, he will provisionally attach the property and keep it. Then next is the initiating officer, after making all the inquiries, calling for the evidences, if he deems fit and taking into account the relevant materials within a period of 90 days from the date of the issue of notice. Okay, so agar notice issue kiya, then within a period of 90 days. Between this period, first he has to gather evidence etc. And within the periods of 90 days, either he should provisionally attach the property as I just explained you under subsection 3. Okay, provisional attachment. Okay, pass an order continuing that provisional attachment. So if he has already done the provisional attachment along with the notice, so he can again pass an order to continue this provisional attachment unless and until the adjudicating authority passes the decision. Or if he has good evidences, he says nahi kuch Benami jaisa nahi lag raha, so then he can revoke also the provisional attachment of the property. Okay, so point A, where the property was already attached. Now say where the property, the provisional attachment was not made and only notice was given. So here he can pass an order to provisionally attach the property now, okay, with the approval of the approving authority, and keep that provisional attachment unless and until the decision or the order is made by the adjudicating authority. And if he has got evidences where it is not getting proved, he's not got only evidence whether this is a Benami property, then he can decide not to attach the property at all. Okay. Subsection 5 of this section 24 says that where the initiating officer passes an order to continue the provisional attachment, okay, or passes an order to provisionally attach the property now, whatever, then he shall within 15 days of such attachment, okay, he has to draw up a statement of the case and refer the case to the adjudicating authority. So theek hai, notice you have sent and then he gets a period of 90 days. But once he is attaching the property, either within this period or he attaches the property, then he has got only 15 days time to make up a statement, draw up a statement and put it to the adjudicating authority. Okay, who is an initiating officer is the same meaning like an assistant commissioner or a deputy commissioner, okay, under the Income Tax Act. Now where will the notice be served? Manner of servicing notice, it's very simple. If in case of an individual, then to the individual. Okay. If it's a firm, then it is a managing partner or the manager of the firm. If it is an HUF, then Karta. In case of a company, principal officer, then any member of the association or body of India, and any other person who manages or controls the affairs of the property. Okay. Okay. Now coming to the adjudication of Benami property. This is also one question which they ask in exam. Okay, so section 26 relates to the adjudication. So now what happens that once the reference is made, okay, by the initiating officer, that this is a property, these are the documents, etc. These are the evidences which is being gathered by the initiating officer. So initiating officer will do his work. He will make a reference and put it to the adjudicating authority. Okay. So now on the receipt of a reference, adjudicating authority now shall issue a notice to furnish such documents, particulars and evidences which are necessary for the particular case. On whom will they serve the notice? One, on the Benamidar. Second, to the beneficial owner. Any other interested party, say suppose a banking company or any other person who is making the claim in respect of that property. So they will serve the notice to all of them to give further, for other documents and other particular evidences. Now the adjudicating authority will issue the notice within a period of 30 days. So once the initiating officer has made a reference to adjudicating authority, then within a period of 30 days, adjudicating authority has to serve the notice under section 26. Okay. And further, the notice will have to be given. After giving the notice, they also have to give a time of at least 30 days so that the person can furnish the information. Okay. So even the adjudicating authority will get 30 days time, and even the person on whom the notice was served, even they are going to get 30 days time. Okay, to serve their reply and the documents. Okay. Now subsection 3 provides that the adjudicating authority, after considering the reply, so once the reply is received to the notice, okay, making or causing to be made such inquiry and calling for such reports and evidences, okay, if they deem fit, they'll take all these relevant materials and facts and documents into account. They will give an opportunity of being heard to the person specified as a Benamidar, also to the initiating officer and any other person who claims to be the owner of the property. So adjudicating authority here will consider all the facts, documents and evidence. Okay, all the evidences, and also will give an opportunity of heard to the Benamidar, then to the initiating officer and also any other person who claims to be the real owner of such property. Thereafter, the adjudicating authority will pass an order holding the property either not to be a Benami property and revoking the attachment order, or holding the property to be a Benami property and confirming the attachment. Okay. Then subsection 4 provides that where the adjudicating authority feels that some part of the property is Benami. So some part is Benami, and with respect of reference is made, but is not able to specifically identify then that such part, he shall record a finding to the best of his judgment for that part of the property which is to be held as Benami. So it can be a part is held as Benami, a part is not. Then he has to make a proper judgment to which part should be treated as Benami and which should be not. Then where in the course of proceedings before the authority, he has a reasons to believe that a property other than other than the property for which reference is made, there is one more property which is actually again seeming to be a Benami property. Okay, it shall provisionally attach even that property, and that property shall be deemed to be property referred to as if it was attached on the date of receipt of the reference made by the initiating officer. Okay. Now subsection 6 provides that the adjudicating authority may, at any stage of the proceedings, either on the application of any party or suo motu, strike out the names of any party which were improperly joined in, unnecessarily. They are not being involved also. Or the ones who are left out, they can add their names. Okay. So your adjudicating authority has the full right to make the changes, either after an application or if the suo motu feels so. Okay. Subsection 7 provides that no order under subsection 3 shall be passed after the expiry of 1 year. Basically, they are saying that the adjudicating authority has 1 year's time, okay, from the end of the month in which reference was made. Okay, so if reference was made, say, on 1st of December, then 1 month's time, so they have got over here. Okay, because they will be serving the notice, waiting for the reply, etc., etc. After this, they have got only 1 year to pass an order. Okay. As per subsection 7 of the Act, the central government shall, by notification, appoint one or more adjudicating authorities for purpose of exercising jurisdiction and the powers given under the Act. Okay. An adjudicating authority shall consist of a chairperson and at least 2 other members. Now moving to this is an important question, okay. The adjudication of Benami property under section 26. Even if you can't remember the subsections, which are really very simple actually, only subsection 7 from 1 to 7 are only there. So if you can make pointers for these subsections and have a flow of this answer, like how I have just taught you. Now confiscation and investing of the Benami property. I said confiscation is done by once it is confiscated by the central government, and it will be vested also with the central government only. Okay. So after giving an opportunity of the being heard, then the property can be confiscated. Okay. Now, however, see here, where an appeal has been filed. Okay, so adjudicating authority say a particular person is not happy. So appeal can be filed. Okay. Appeal, once the appeal has been filed against the order of the adjudicating authority, the confiscation of the property shall be made subject to the order which will now be passed by the appellate tribunal. Okay, further confiscation of the property shall be made in accordance in the procedure. Okay, so right now if you are not happy and you have taken the case in the appeal, now after the appeal, whatever will be the decision, the property will be confiscated thereafter. It will be attached but not confiscated. Okay. Then subsection 2 provides that the above shall not apply to a property held or acquired by a person from the Benamidar for an adequate consideration prior to the issue of notice, without having the knowledge of a Benami transaction. Now what happens here is, there can be a particular buyer who in good faith, okay, good faith, also he paid the consideration. Okay, he paid the consideration and in good faith he had acquired the property, okay, from the Benamidar. And he really had no idea as to this particular, property is a Benami property, is the real owner koi aur hai. He didn't have that idea. Okay, so he's an innocent buyer in good faith and with consideration, adequate consideration, and prior to the issue of notice, all this was done. Okay, without he having the knowledge, then these sections, okay, will not be applicable for that particular person. Okay. Then coming to subsection 3 provides that where an order of confiscation has been made, then once the confiscation order is made, then all the rights, title, okay, of that property will now vest with central government, free from all encumbrances, and no compensation is payable in such confiscation. Okay. Subsection 4 provides that any right of any third person created in such property with a view purposely to defeat the purpose of the act, then it will be null and void, like how we had seen under section 6, okay, of this act. That no order of confiscation is made upon the proceedings under the act attaining finality, no claim shall lie against the government. Okay. Now, management of property which is confiscated. So obviously the confiscated property, central government, they appoint administrators who then look after the property. Okay, and that administrators, they give the name of the administrators in the official gazette. Possession of the property. Okay, now relates to the possession of the property means what? That once the order of confiscation is made on that property. Okay, तो property का पता चल गया कि भाई ये बेनामी property है. So now it is going to be vested with central government. So say somebody is possessing this property, somebody is paying. Okay, so then the administrator will have to make all the arrangements to take away the possession from that person, shall proceed to take the possession of such property. Okay. Then the administrator, how will he take the possession? He will give a notice in writing order within 7 days of the date of the service of the notice to the person who may be in the possession to surrender or deliver the possession to the administrator. Okay. If he does not comply to the orders referred above, then for the purpose of forcibly taking over the possession, requisition the service of any police officer may assist him for the purpose of acquisition. Now, appellate tribunal, since say after the adjudicating authority, the appeal has to be made, then it will go to the appellate tribunal. Okay. Notification by central government, they say that central government should establish appellate tribunal and hear appeals against the orders of the adjudicating authority. Alright. Then after the, here right now appeal to High Court is also there, that any person who is aggrieved by the order of the appellate tribunal, then he may file an appeal to the High Court within the 60 days of the communication of the order. Alright, so if you want to file an appeal from the appellate tribunal, you can go to the High Court. However, special courts, okay, under this act, the salient feature in which what we studied at the starting, one of the salient feature was to establish special courts to look after these matters. Okay. So section 50 of this act relates to special courts. This section provides that the central government, in consultation with the Chief Justice of High Court, shall, for a trial of the offence punishable under this act, okay, by notification designate one or more courts of sessions as a special court for this purpose, okay, or establish special courts in those areas or group of areas, okay, by a notification. Why? Because high courts are already overburdened. Section 2, this section provides, subsection 2 provides that while trying an offence under this act, special courts shall also try an offence under the offence referred into subsection 1, with which the accused may come under the Code of Criminal Procedure, be charged under the same trial. Okay. The special court shall not take cognizance of any offence punishable under this act except upon a complaint made to them in writing by the authority or any officer of the central or the state government. Okay, and subsection 4 provides that every trial under this section shall be conducted expeditiously, as fast as possible, and they should try to conclude the entire matter within 6 months from the date of complaint. Okay. Now the last part of this act is offences and prosecution. Section 53 relates to the penalties. Where any person enters into Benami transaction for the purpose to defeat the provision of this law or avoid payment of the dues or avoid payment to creditors, etc., okay, they shall be guilty of the offence of Benami transaction. Then, if you are found guilty, I said the punishment will not be less than 1 year, extend to 7 years, and fine which may extend to 25% of the fair market value. Section 54 provides penalty for giving false information. Okay, so if in case you are giving any false information under this act, then punishment not less than 6 months, it may extend to 5 years, and fine which may extend to 10% of the FMV, fair market value. Okay. Coming to the offences by companies. Offenses by companies. Now, if the company has committed an offense, then whom are you going to punish? Okay. So, a person committing a contravention of any provisions under this act is a company. Okay. At the time of contravention was committed, then the person or any other officer at the time when the contravention was committed was in charge of that or responsible for the conduct of the affairs of the company, as well as the company shall be deemed to be guilty of the contravention and be liable to proceed against the punishments. Okay. Now, however, that particular officer under this section proves, okay, shall render any person liable to punishment if he proves that the contravention took place without his knowledge. So, if he can prove that whatever Benami transaction which was entered, he did not have any knowledge and it was done without his covenants, without his agreement, then yes, then this will not apply to that particular officer. Okay. So, with this, we finish our Anti-Corruption Laws, Prevention of Money Laundering Act and Benami Transactions Act. Okay. The exam questions which possibly are asked in the exams, like in this past three attempts which I see for Prevention of Money Laundering Act, they ask you the 3 stages. Okay, 3 stages of money laundering which we have seen. And the most important question after that is the obligations. Okay, on banks, financial institutions and intermediaries. These 2 questions are the most important questions in PMLA Act. And in Benami Transactions Prohibition Act, the most important question is section 2 subsection 9, which is the definition of a Benami transaction. And another question is the adjudication of a Benami property under section 26. Alright. So, any doubt you all have, you all want to ask any questions? This entire notes, it is like taken up from your module only. So, I have covered up the whole module for these 2 acts. Okay. Thank you.